The 4 Ds in action. So imagine you're uh, going to work. Everything seems like it's okay. And on your way to work, you realize you forgot your keys. So your work keys, that would be. So you got to go home to get your keys for the office. So you turn around, you go back to your house, and now you're running late. As you're going in from the house, you trip, stub your toe, as they say, and you go back in the house and you're scrambling around, you're looking for your keys. It's making you more late, and you're starting to become anxious, you're starting to become flustered, and then someone calls you right in that moment, and you tell yourself, I shouldn't answer this phone, but you decide to answer the phone anyway. And it's a family member, and they need to be taken to the doctor, and they're looking for someone to help them. Now, for many of us, we'd feel like at this moment, we're in a crisis situation because our anxiety is so high. We feel like there's so much pressure on us in this moment, like we're actually experiencing a crisis. But for those who are regulated, for those who are in a healed mindset, it's actually very rare to classify something you're experiencing as a crisis, right? So someone that is dysregulated, suffering from trauma mindset, they respond to everything in their daily life when it becomes a little bit distressing with fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. But situations like what I named are actually everyday life problems. Um, it doesn't feel like that when you're in it. It feels like everything's going wrong, and like the universe is turning on you. But the reality is, we all get put in situations where one thing after another can get stacked on top of us. So someone who is cool, calm, and collected is employing the 4 Ds of the healed response. So whereas you're doing fight, flight, freeze, and fawn response, they have disconnection, discussion, deliberation, and deference. That was disconnection, discussion, deliberation, and deference. Now, many people who don't have a traumatized mindset can do this naturally, but those of us who are trying to get out of fight, flight, freeze, we need a little help to like learn what it is they're doing and how to do it. So you may be surprised to know that the changes you have to make to get out of your traumatized mindset don't necessarily have to be huge, big, extreme changes. It's actually just a very small adjustment that's needed. For instance, in golf, when you're hitting the ball, the difference between getting it here on the green or way over there in the sand trap, when it comes to me in my position, it's an adjustment of the putter from this to just this. It's a very small adjustment, just from this to this. Likewise, you can get a very large difference in your life in the outcome by making very small adjustments. So you want to make an adjustment from defaulting to fight response, which is to become extreme and combative, to start blaming, to start accusing, or to become defensive, to discussion, which is to calmly, after a pause, engage a person. Yes, there's confrontation involved, but it's done in such a way that doesn't put the other person on a defense or isn't offensive to people. It's done in such a way that we don't have to look back and regret the way we handled it. And there's skills of discussion. So we have to learn those skills and practice those skills. The more you do it, the better you are naturally. But if you haven't done discussion in a long time, it's going to be very difficult for you. If you hide away from confrontation, discussion is going to seem like an astronomical task. So how do you get better? Practice, practice, practice. And that's what those who are not in traumatized mindset are doing. They become very good at working their problems out, at expressing their boundaries, because they practice it all the time. So that's why you see them just hop on the phone like, Gary, I hate to do this, but we're going to have to ask for a pushback to alleviate the pressure for this deadline, blah, blah, blah. And you're just like, oh my God, I would have just froze, ate chocolate ice cream. How do they know how to just go in and just ask for what they want and then how to put it into words? How do they know how to do that? Practice. So you have to get out of your comfort zone and start practicing expressing what you want, asking for what you want, demanding what you want. Practice. Does that make sense? Likewise, a traumatized person will use flight response. So when they don't want to fight or when they don't believe that fight would work, then they're going to use flight. That's a very common one. Flight response looks a million different ways for a million different people, but ultimately, because you become dysregulated, you feel like you need to just move out of the space that you're in or move away from the people that you're around or get into extreme thinking like perfectionism and things like that. So flight response manifests itself in our life with everyday situations. We're quitting jobs abruptly, we're ghosting relationships abruptly. But in reality, a healed person or a person who is not in the traumatized mindset has the ability to simply disconnect. And that's different than flight because after a pause, a person is able to recognize if something is toxic for them or if they don't need to get involved in something. And then they just simply disconnect from it. This can be emotional disconnection. So you may have seen a calm, cool, collected person, and there's a seeming crisis all around them, but they're just like, no problem. I'm calm, I'm chill, I'm cool, I'm collected. And part of what they're doing is they're able to disconnect a bit emotionally from the situation, and that allows them to think rationally to be able to handle it. How do we learn how to disconnect properly, to not just dissociate and just go into ourselves, but to actually be able to remove our emotion from a situation? Practice and pausing. We need to practice it. You need to visualize situations that can come up that will be difficult, that will be challenging, and then practice. How would I be able to sit there and remain in a calm state despite everything happening around me? Then there's physical disconnection, which isn't running away, but it's recognizing that someone's not a healthy person for us or something is a toxic situation and simply taking our leave. This would be quitting a job that's toxic. This would be getting away from a relationship or a person that's toxic. We have to end a lot of relationships if we want to stay healthy. We have to be good at ending relationships, getting away from people that aren't the right fit for us instead of trying to hold on to everyone all the time. That's trauma response. That's a fawn response. So the fawn response is where you're always trying to, or in a crisis situation, you're trying to appease someone else that you're basically holding as superior to you in the moment. Maybe because you feel like they have more power, they have the position, right? So to speak, maybe there's a gun pointed at you. That's how you feel. So you're fawning, which is trying to please and appease said person instead of staying authentic to yourself. So you're abandoning the self when we're in the fawn response. So instead of putting people as superior, what a healed person is doing is they're using deference. Healthy deference is just understanding that we do need to acknowledge the other person. We do need to give them their due. We do need to give them their proper respect. But we don't need to flip out and worship them, put them on a higher level than us, lose ourselves in the relationship. None of that is necessary. So how can we use deference? Well, sometimes just in the wording, we might say ma'am or sir, right? It's a little bit of deference. In certain situations, you can defer to another person's opinion or plan. So you can say, hey, I think we should do this. And another person says, well, I really feel we should do that. And deference, healthy deference is saying, well, okay, I suppose we could do it your way. Not a problem. We have to have that ability, that flexibility to have the healthy deference and allow other people to have their way. That's what makes us good leaders. So you tell your children, hey, tonight we're going to be making pork chops with green peas. And then your kids say, well, can we have chicken nuggets tonight? And you go, uh, I suppose one night is fine. And you show that deference. This makes you a reasonable person. When you're a reasonable person, people want to talk to you. When you become rigid, no, I said this. You were supposed to be here at this time. Why didn't you? Then you're not showing that healthy deference to the other person. They don't feel comfortable in your space. They feel like they constantly have to walk on eggshells around you, and they don't want to be around you. And so, if you're the type of person who never shows healthy deference, you might notice your adult children pulling away from you. You might notice employees not coming to you, but coming to other people, right? So healthy deference, again, it's not fawning and just doing whatever everyone else wants, but it's seeing yourself and seeing them simultaneously as two equals, and then deciding if you will maybe this time let them have their way or assert yourself in this situation. Of course, that takes thinking, which brings us to our last, deliberation. Deliberation is meditation, it's thinking, it's just pausing, taking a moment to actually analyze things. We need to deliberate all the time. Whenever there's a situation that calls for us to act, to speak, to respond, we need to pause and think. Deliberation allows us to respond as our higher self. It allows us to be the best version of ourselves. So it's essential that you practice deliberation. Yes, that means that you're going to have to make people wait. You're going to have to make people uncomfortable. But it's an important skill to have. It will give you the ability to allow for change, strategy, to have the proper amount of caution, and to not react in your emotion. That's the beauty of deliberation. You're not reacting now according to your emotion, but you're taking the moment to just pause before everything. The deliberation is the secret to be able to stay in the 3D, in the 4Ds. The three other Ds have deliberation before them. You have to deliberate before you discuss. You have to deliberate before you defer. You have to deliberate before you disconnect. Everything takes thinking. When we're in our trauma mindset, we're not thinking. We're reacting, responding. Immediately. So a calm person, someone who is applying the 4Ds, would be in the same situation like I described in the beginning. Everything's going wrong. They had to go back for their keys. Now someone needs a ride to the doctor. And they would employ deliberation. They would simply say, I can probably save time today by taking a moment right now to just think. And so they pause right there in their house. And as they're thinking, they remember where their keys are, for one, because you give yourself a moment and you can actually recall where you leave things. And then they tell the person, let me call you back. I'm in the middle of something right now. And then once they're in the car on the way to work, they have a little more time to think it out. And they realize that this emergency shouldn't fall on them, or this isn't actually an emergency situation right now. And they make a phone call and say, hey, look, why don't I take you to the doctor today after work? Or why don't you call so-and-so to take you to the doctor? Right? And they're able to think all that out. What happens when we're respond, right? And we're going, and then you end up doing things like going and running and taking someone that said they need to go to the doctor right now, and you take them and you realize, like, what? You stubbed your finger? Like, why did I miss work for this? You ever do that? Try to go help someone and realize what you're going to help them with is actually less important than what you would have just done if you would have just stayed true to what you were doing, but you keep allowing people to move you off your center. Does that ever happen to you? You allow someone to move you off your purpose because you just felt like you needed to prioritize everyone else. And then it turns out to really be not worth it. Deliberation. When the person thought about it, they said, hey, you know what? This isn't an emergency. We can handle this a different way, or someone else can help. Right? So let's put the 4Ds into action. And let's start thinking about how we can actually respond according to discussion, disconnection, deliberance, deference in our own lives. So what if you're experiencing a situation that's throwing you off, such as you're getting yelled at by someone, like a stranger in the grocery store. They feel like you bumped into them or something like that, and they're yelling at you for some social faux pas that you apparently did in their mind. Um, how can you use the 4Ds in this situation? Or which of the 4Ds would you use in this situation? Disconnection, that's a great one for this, right? Because this is a stranger. So I had a client once that said she bumped into an old lady, and she was a client in outside of the United States. So they had a special deference for the elderly in her country. But she said she bumped into an older woman, and then this older woman laid into her and told her how stupid and ridiculous she was. And literally, it was causing her depression. And that's why we were on the phone call. She was depressed because an old lady yelled at her. Why? She allowed herself to internalize everything the lady was saying. She internalized the abuse. It's not healthy. It's not healthy. Internalizing the abuse of others, not healthy. Getting caught up in the emotion of the situation, not healthy. So emotional disconnection at that moment, and maybe even just walking away, that would be a healthy response. So a slight deliberation. She's thinking for a moment. She's looking at the situation. This lady's fine. This person's yelling at me. I don't need to take this. I don't need to take this. Boop. Remove yourself. Remove yourself. Don't engage. It's happened to me where I've like been moving through spaces, and I moved through one space. I didn't even touch the lady. I was just moving through, and she turns around. She goes, "Excuse you." I didn't. I didn't touch her. I didn't touch her. I just moved past her. And she, "Excuse you." I guess in her mind, she was trying to shame me for not saying "excuse me" to her. But I didn't need her to excuse me for my presence, since I wasn't needing her to move out of my way. I was simply moving past her. I didn't say "excuse me." But she goes, "Excuse you." So I go, "I'm excused." This is the first thing that came to my head. I'm not advocating you be a smart aleck, but we need to be able to recognize that in each situation we can default to the D's instead of the F's, right? So let's take another dysregulating situation. You get passed up on a good project at work, and instead you get slammed with more crappy work, the busy work that really is putting you down, and it's more than you're going to be able to do in the amount of time that you have to do it. Okay, bam. What do we default to? You got more work than you can possibly get done, right? So some people go freeze response. We don't want to do that. Or you just don't do anything. You don't get anything done, right? Flight response would be to either distract yourself and get away from it, or try to go full on into everything and try to get it perfect and be this super high achiever. But then you cry at night. So flight response isn't it, right? You can get in a fight with your boss, but rather we use the 4Ds. Which of the 4Ds can we use? We got too much work on our desk. It's not the work we wanted. We just got passed up on the type of work we wanted. Which of the 4Ds can we use? Discussion. Yeah, it's a good time. It's a good time after a deliberation to go into the boss and just let them know what's happening. Let them know how you're feeling. Hey, maybe I'm being emotional, but I was really hoping I would get job number A. Instead, I got job number B, which wouldn't be a problem, except I only have 2 hours to do it, and it's 4 hours worth of work. What do you think I should do in this situation, boss? And bam, this is discussion. I came in, I presented the problem. I'm using deference. I said, what do you think I should do in this situation, boss? This is a technique of discussion in which it doesn't feel as like as awkwardly confrontational as if I were just to go in and complain. I shouldn't do this, and I just start listing my reasons. It kind of gets into fight, right? Because you're being defensive. I shouldn't do this because I do this and I have to do this and I don't understand this. And then, right? It's better to just, hey, let's work towards a solution. What do you think we should do? How can we solve this? Boss, bam, that's deference. That's healthy deference. So I'm using discussion. I'm using deference. I'm using deliberation. Excellent job. Excellent job. Let's take the situation where um, you're talking to your spouse, you're having a serious discussion, and they do something to trigger you. For some, it's a spouse like throwing an object. For others, it's being mocked. For some, it's like feeling like you're not being listened to. What do? Spouse does something that you don't like, it's triggering you. What do? Which of the four D's can we use in this situation? Disconnect, deliberate, then discuss. Yeah. So if we're already talking about something else, then I'm going to write down my concern, the thing I didn't like them that they did. And I'm going to try to address it at another time. With deliberation, it helps me realize if I try to address it now, I'm really just starting a fight because we're actually trying to talk about something else right now. I might be able to let this go for a moment. If you can't let it go for a moment, it was just too egregious, then we're going to have to go into discussion. I'm sorry. What was that you just said to me? Or, babe, I'm sorry to interrupt our discussion. You know it's a pet peeve of mine for you to do blah, blah, blah. Or we take a moment to disconnect. Babe, I need to take a break from this conversation. Why don't we meet back here, saying around 20 minutes? Go in the other room, take your space. Allow yourself to calm down. The physiology regulates when you give it a little time. Right? Right. So that's using our 4Ds. You guys are getting it. You're putting it into practice already. Why don't you guys throw some situations at me that are dysregulating to you, that are frightening to you, that are triggering to you, that are everyday situations that makes it difficult to stay within your D's, that triggers fight, flight, freeze within you. Why don't you give me an example of a situation? You can write it down in the chat box. Let's do family member talking at me makes me defensive. That's kind of like what we just discussed, right? So you take that moment, and when you realize you're starting to get defensive, you always deliberate. That's your default. Your default is deliberation. It's a pause. Rule of 7 seconds, the same thing. Rule of 7 seconds. Pause, deliberate. As soon as someone's making you feel like you want to get defensive, you never want to defend yourself, justify, explain. Defending yourself will create a fight. So you're going to deliberate. You're going to take a moment, disconnect, say, hey, let me get a break, or discuss once you're calm enough and use your tools of discussion. Right? How about going to court? We have a toxic ex. We have a court date coming up. We got to go to court with the toxic ex. How can we use the D's when we're inside that court date? There's going to be sensitive things getting discussed. We don't want to freeze up, right? Right? We don't want to be in the F's, the fight, flight, freeze, fawn. We want to be in our D's, right? So instead of fawning and just letting them do whatever they want, say whatever they want, we carefully follow the conversation. We write it down. We make them slow down when we don't understand something. And then we use discussion. And we talk either to our lawyer and through our lawyer or to whomever it is that's proper to address in this court. And then we explain what it is we have to say. We assert ourselves. Not using too many words. We're clear, brief, and simple. CBS, right? Clear, brief, and simple. We use the proper deference when we speak to the judge, right? It's proper in many lands say something deferential like your honor, things like that. Following their rules is showing the proper deference. So when he asks you to be quiet, then you're quiet. You don't just keep, no. You don't do all that. You just calm down, handle the situation, uh, with deliberation, with the proper deference. Use your discussion, and you have to disconnect emotionally. You have to disconnect emotionally from the situation. My ex throws chaos at me. I need to pause and not react always. Yeah, the whole point of the chaos is to dysregulate. The point of dysregulating you is to prove that you're inferior to them. So they have to prove that you're the crazy one, as they say. So that's why he's got to throw the chaos at you. Throw the chaos at you. Right? Don't react. One time, uh, my ex-wife. I don't think I've ever told this story. My ex-wife. She was a narcissist. If you're just joining us, um, she um, she said something to me like she was like washing dishes and she had like this whole attitude about the situation. And I was like kind of like picking up like around the house. And for whatever reason, she said something like, don't even think about bringing any more dishes in here, which is just dumb because if there's a dish in the living room and I'm picking up, then I'm gonna bring the dish in. I don't get it. So so I proceeded to not listen to her because no, you're not gonna tell me what to do. Especially when it's a ridiculous thing like don't bring any dishes into the kitchen. And I set the dish next to her on the counter. I didn't tell her like you need to wash this or anything. I just set it down on the counter. When I walked out of the kitchen, I kid you not, that glass came flying behind me and hit the wall and broke. I'm not saying she threw it because I didn't see. My back was turned, but the glass came flying and we were the only two in the house. And that thing hit the wall and it broke. Yeah, that's some abusive stuff, right? Yeah, it's kind of dark. And how did I react? No reaction. Somebody drops a glass, then they clean it up. Isn't that how it works in your house? Not a big deal. Just continue on my way and make sure I never turn my back to that person, right? You realize, oh, this person is violent, so I don't want myself to ever be harmed. So now I know never to turn my back on this person. But there's nothing to get dysregulated about. That's what they want you to do. Just I looked at the glass and just walked out. I think I took a picture of it. And she had to clean it up later. That's what you just look stupid in the end. You cleaning up your own glass. I'm just sitting in the living room like that was dumb, right? So so we need to not allow the abuser to knock us off our game. You got to stay with it. Disconnect. Disconnection is gray rocking, right? That's emotional disconnection. So it's just never change your face. Just bored all the time. Whatever it is you have to say to them, because you're just biding time to get out of this relationship with the narcissist. So that's what the gray rocking's all about. This same face right here, just complete boredom. They ask you, "Where's the keys? What are you doing with it?" Just matter of fact statements. The keys are in the jar. I'm doing the such and such. Yeah, I'll be home at 6. Yeah, just matter of fact, handle necessary business until you can get out of the relationship. Right? Okay, good. My mom asked me to pray for her. Won't tell me what's wrong. Typical narcissist mother. She wants to get in your head. Don't don't fall for that. Oh, pray for me, but I'm not gonna. What's wrong, mom? Is everything okay? No, baby, I'm not gonna tell you. No, 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 no. Don't worry about it. Just pray for me. Just pray for me. Man, if you don't take your over dramatic, attention seeking, how am I supposed to pray? I don't even know what I'm praying for. Get out of here with this fake spirituality having. Get out of here with this. Don't play into that. You stay in your D's. Cool, calm, and collected. A little deliberation tells you she's attention seeking right now. I'm gonna disconnect and you walk away. Like, pray for me, baby. Oh, mom, what's wrong? Everything okay? Oh, no, no, no. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I'm not going to tell you. Just pray for me. Just pray for me. That's all I'm telling you. Just pray for me. I can't tell you. What I'm going through, I can't tell you about it, baby. I can't tell you. Yeah, who has time for this? Just, okay, mom. Just walk away. Just walk away. So what am I using there? A little deliberation, a little disconnection. Done, 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 done. Right? I just got written up at work for a parent lying on me and assassinating my name with the big boss. Good. So you're smeared at work, and then there was repercussions for the smearing. So you get written up, right? A little deliberation. You stay calm. If there's someone that's higher up that you feel like you need to talk to tell them your story. If there's a way to appeal the decision, that's applying a proper discussion. That's it. There's nothing else to do except for find another job or, it's like, or stay and just live your life. You can't stop people from lying. You can't stop people from believing lies. You can't stop people from giving you repercussions that you don't deserve. So don't get caught up in the fight. Wait. Don't get dysregulated at night over it. If you can't control it, then you had no power over it. If you have no power, you have no responsibility. If you have no responsibility, then you have no fault. Does that make sense? I said, if you can't control it, you have no power over it. If you have no power, then there's no responsibility. And if there's no responsibility, then there's no fault. So there's no reason to lose any sleep. They wrote me up. If I lose my job, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. I didn't do anything wrong. It's that simple. All right, awesome. You guys did a great job on this exercise here. Let me just check, make sure I didn't miss anything. Yeah, we got everything there. Good. So those are examples. So what we're doing is we're practicing. We're using a little repetition, a little visualization, so you can see how to use the 4Ds. So all this week is what I need you doing. Drop it into your 4Ds. Drop it into your 4Ds. Remember, deliberation, disconnection, deference, discussion. I know it's a lot to memorize, but you kind of need them, right? Because you didn't learn naturally to do these things. So now you're going to learn through this classroom style of learning the techniques, and they will become natural. And so soon you'll embody them. And there will come a time 5, 10 years from now, you won't remember what the 4Ds were, but you'll naturally do them. You're going to become the 4Ds.